Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. If you watch my channel on a regular basis, you probably know how much I like to limit the amount of tackle that I carry with me. And that's not necessarily just in my boat. I could be talking about going shore fishing or maybe taking a vacation. I really like to carry with me tackle that is very diverse in what I can use it for, meaning I like to use baits that I can use for 20 different techniques. I like to carry with me rods that I can use for a lot of different techniques. And I also like to carry a lot of terminal tackle that I can use for a lot of different baits and techniques. And that's what I want to talk about today are three hooks that I could not do without because these three hook styles I use in a lot of different presentations. You know, one thing that's so cool about new techniques that come out is how precise and specific they are, but it generally means you got to buy very specific gear as well, which then means you're putting more tackle into your tackle box and into your boat and wherever it is that you put your tackle. It also means you're spending more money on it, which definitely can add up over time too. So if you've got specific pieces of tackle, whether it's a hook, whether it's a fishing rod, or a bait that you can apply to multiple different types of techniques, it does make you more efficient and it means you're saving a few bucks because you're not buying a whole pile of stuff. And today I'm going to give you these three hooks that I apply to a pile of different techniques. It really has helped me limit the amount of hooks that I need to carry with me in the boat. And it just makes me more efficient because, again, if I know where these are located and I'll use them with a lot of different techniques, I'll be able to identify where they're at in my boat much faster. And I generally carry more of them because I do need the different sizes of each of these for these different techniques. So let's dive into this. But before I share with you these three hooks, I do want to remind you I have a members only channel. And if you're looking for some more in depth content and maybe a more personal view where you can ask me your direct questions and you want additional content, whether that's the additional videos I do or our monthly live stream for the members, check out the members only page. It's a great way to support the channel and it's also a good way to get in direct contact with me. Okay, so let's talk about these three hooks. The first one probably is not going to surprise a lot of people. This for me is a hook that I use on, I'm going to say probably 75% of the plastic baits that I throw. And this is an EWG worm hook. EWG stands for extra wide gap. That just means you have more gap from the hook shank to the hook point. It allows the hook to be used for a lot of different presentations. A standard worm hook generally has a narrower gap, which works great for most worms. But when you start getting into some of those bulky baits like your creature style baits, you want more gap there. The thing is, an EWG style hook still works great for your thinner profiled baits, like say a power worm or something along those lines that is a very thin bait. So in this case, I could not do without an EWG style hook. So for me, if I am rigging any plastic that is, I'm going to say, probably 3 inches or larger, I generally use an EWG style hook. So if I'm flipping around a creature style bait, I'm going to be using it. If I'm throwing a worm, I'm going to be using it. I tend to not like to carry with me a bunch of, say, worm hooks in this case because they become a little bit more specific to your thinner baits. So for me, to carry around an EWG style hook, these are the Fusion 19 ones. They are phenomenal. For me, this is just an extremely versatile bait. Now, it doesn't have to be just, say, a Texas rig. It could be for, say, a soft fluke bait where you're fishing it weightless, or if you're taking a soft stick bait like a General or a Cinco or whatever it is that you love to throw, you can rig it in a Texas style manner as well. So if I'm rigging a bait weedless, and I could be fishing it with a weight or without a weight, it's generally going to be an EWG style hook. So I don't think that one necessarily probably surprises anybody, but I would bet you that that hook is used by, I'm going to say, I'm throwing numbers out, probably 90% of all professional level anglers rely on an EWG style hook pretty exclusively. Okay, so the next one, if we're talking about fishing a lot of different style plastics, you got to have something that's got some weight to it. So maybe you want to fish a shaky head, maybe you want to fish a small swim bait, maybe you want to fish a Ned rig, anything along those lines. A lot of those style of hooks work with each other. So for me, one that I absolutely love is a mushroom style head. So this guy right here is the Berkeley Fusion 19 half head. It is a mushroom style head. And this is, to me, this is actually what I started fishing small swim baits with, was a mushroom style jig head years and years ago, before there were specifically made finesse swim bait jig heads. They work phenomenally well on a small swim bait, but that's not just it. For me, I'll throw this as a shaky head jig head. I'll use it as a Ned rig jig head. I'll also slide it up inside of small tubes and use it as a small tube jig head. So from that standpoint, if I'm talking about most of my finesse presentations, I can fish them all on this jig head alone. This little half head is an amazing jig head. It is an extremely diverse jig head. Now, I can't necessarily say that across the board of all other similar style jig heads. So what I mean by that is, so if you were going to go grab a specific stand-up shaky head, right? Well, that is very specific to a shaky head to get the bait to kind of stand up some. But if you took that stand-up shaky head and applied it to a small swim bait, it doesn't work that good. It's not ideal in that circumstance. So you want to, if you're looking to become more efficient and use a bait that can, or use a hook that can be applied to multiple different presentations, you really want to pay attention to the jig head design. And that's where your mushroom style jig heads really come into play. You know, one of the first techniques where you saw it really thrive was on what's called a jig worm, which is where you take a small worm and you just thread it on and leave it exposed. Very popular up here in the northern upper Midwest, but the mushroom style head has really started to kind of take part, or really thrive in other parts of the country. But just recognize how diverse that jig head is. So I carry with me a pile of half heads everywhere I go. The next one is maybe a little bit more specific, but it's a hook I could not do without. And it's one that's relatively new too. And that's this guy right here. So this is what's referred to as an extra wide gap finesse style hook. So it's a very short shank, wide gap hook. Now this, for me, is a very valuable tool for a lot of my finesse presentations that are going to be weightless. So it's primarily a wacky rig style hook. This is the hook that I used to win the Mississippi River event on a Berkeley Maxent the General. But it's not just a wacky rig hook. This little guy works extremely well as a drop shot hook, and it also works extremely well to nose hook baits where you're looking to get a little bit of extra movement out of the bait. So maybe if you're rigging a soft jerk bait like a fluke style bait, you can nose hook it, fish them weightless, and really work them through the water column really well. That presentation is very good too if you're doing something along the lines of a split shot presentation, where maybe you've got a weightless bait, then you got a split shot, say 12, 18 inches in front of it, kind of a mini Carolina rig approach. But these little hooks are valuable to me because you can use them for a ton of different finesse presentations. It's primarily wacky rig, but works great as a drop shot as well. And then any other baits where you're trying to impart a lot of action, a lot of your minnow style baits tend to work phenomenally well. But these are the three style baits. This is the finesse wide gap, like I said, again, just another killer bait. But these three hooks, I can get away with fishing a pile of different techniques. You don't have to go out and buy every crazy hook for everything that comes out. You really want to look at baits, that are going to make you more efficient, save you a few bucks. And yes, in some circumstances, there are very specific hooks that you'll need to get. But with a lot of different presentations, you can get away with 3 to 5 different hooks. But these are 3 that I could not do without. I use them routinely every time I go fishing. So let me know in the comment section. I'd love to know from you guys, what would you consider another multifaceted hook that can be applied to a lot of different techniques that other anglers might be able to learn from you. So hopefully, guys, you enjoyed today's video. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Stay tuned, new video coming out tomorrow.